Well, folks, this one is gonna be big, and we have a lot to get through before we even start the comparison. But first, holy cow, thank you for all the suggestions! Not only did I get to gauge the big favorites, but I got to hear about the smaller levels too. I think I got enough now to plan my path forward, but don't let that stop you from any recommendations. If a level pops into your head, feel free to shout it out. I got each game's level order mapped out now. Some fun ones will hit early, and some of the big ones I'll save for last, because we gotta end each game with a bang. But thank you! I got like 500 comments. That was insane. Second on the list is just one name and two numbers. Sonic 06. All right, everyone, we're gonna try to be as civil about this as possible. Item number 1, Project 06. I'm not gonna look at it. Okay, now, just hold on, everyone. Just let me explain. I have a PowerPoint!
Does it have transitions?
Yes, it has transitions.
Oh, right. Go ahead.
All right, cool. Can you guys hear me? Is this... Yeah, it's coming through. Okay, cool. You can breathe a sigh of relief, as I'm gonna save Project 06 for its own video or series, which means even if it's not in this comparison, that doesn't mean I won't look at it in the future. Truth be told, I've seen almost nothing about Project 06 besides this wonderful man's little video, and I didn't look further. Everything else, I've only sourced from your comments, and the way you guys talk about this thing, it's a feat unlike any other. And I believe you, but I want to keep Project 06 fresh in my brain. I don't want to shove my thoughts into a comparison with another game. This thing deserves better, and it'll get its due. Project 06 stands out among a lot of other mods because it retools a lot of that game to fit the designer's original intentions. It's essentially the Sonic 06 we always wanted. But the unfortunate truth is, it's not the one we got. Something I want to stand firm on this series is to play these games as close to their original format as possible, barring the occasional tame backwards compatible titles like Unleashed. If I'm comparing Planet Wisp, then I'm gonna play the original Wii version, not Ultimate. If I'm looking at Sonic Rush, I'm gonna play it on an actual DS instead of emulating it on my desktop. I want to make sure I honor your original experiences and your first-hand memories from these games. And speaking of which, item number 2. I hate Sonic 06. But I don't hate you.
Oh, okay.
For those who missed out on my 3-hour Sonic autobiography, which is most likely a lot of you, then you should know that I have some history with this game. I am not some funny man cynic lambasting this thing for views. I was there in the trenches when it came out. 10 years old, so hyped to show my friends and family Sonic Adventure 3. But oh man, it fell apart in my hands, in front of everyone. I could no longer continue loving Sonic with a straight face. This is where I left the franchise, and I didn't really look back in until I played Generations 6 years later. Colors, Riders, Unleashed, Secret Rings, Black Knight, all of them were skipped because of this game. But that's when I was an angry little squirt. I am a much older man now, and any anger has morphed into curiosity. I see people with fond memories sharing their love for this thing, and I want to know why. And I don't want to make fun of them either. So no, even if I personally hate this game, I don't hate you. I don't think you're dumb. I don't think you're stupid. I'm happy that you love it, and I'm genuinely here to understand in good faith. I'm serious. So for this comparison, we won't be doing any OMG LOL bits or performative gamer rage. You guys have heard it enough already. It's all been said before. There's like not even a dead horse for me to lay into anymore, so I'm just gonna critically analyze this thing without the intention of tearing it down for a joke. As someone who grew up on the front lines, the love this thing has gained has perplexed me, but I'm here for it. I know a lot of this comes with item number 1, so if you already know and love how Project 06 saved it, maybe we can point out what was wrong to begin with it together. And to wrap up here, let's go over quickly the differences we'll be seeing today between our two games. If you missed my Shadow Generations video a couple weeks ago, then to sum up quickly, I see this game as a cross between Generations' speed and Frontiers' platforming, with an emphasis on combat to carry you quickly through levels. It's a game that revels in momentum through actions by including multiple fighting mechanics that always push you forward. And I had a great time with it. But Sonic 06 is working with a janky toolset. It seems to be attempting to replicate the adventure style. We see that all over. But it's also focused on combat too. A lot of the games from that era were, you see it with the health bars in Heroes, Shadow, 06. Almost every version of Kingdom Valley will have you battling enemies, but not to chain you forward, instead to slow you down and open doors. In a lot of spaces, fighting is mandatory for progression, but it's tedious and repetitive. And that's not even counting the controls, which are stiff, unpredictable, and difficult, to say the least. least. If I were to give something to the gameplay of Sonic 06, it's that they clearly want you to chain together combat here too, in the narrower sections, and ideally use that to spring you onto different routes. This game's routes are also largely open, well hidden, whether intentional or not, and very vertical, although the camera doesn't aid in this. When I see S ranks of these levels, I can catch a glimpse of enjoyment. Like many Hedgehog titles, once you practice a bit, learn the level, and figure out how to handle Sonic, you'll probably feel pretty good. But we're not just talking about Sonic, are we? We're talking about Shadow. And yet Sonic's set pieces are in Shadow's Generations. What about Silver's set pieces? What about Shadow Generations Act 2? We got a lot to sort out, so pack up your things. We're gonna go over the game plan. I got peanuts instead of pretzels. Do you think they'll let me switch?
Adam, the game plan.
Oh, right. All right, there you go. By the way, I don't have any headphones. Sonic 06 features 3 campaigns, which means you gotta go through Kingdom Valley 3 different times. Are we gonna compare all those levels? Sorta. So for those who don't know, this is the second to last level in both Sonic and Silver's campaign, but Kingdom Valley hits Shadow early. It's level number 2 for him and Rouge. And yes, Rouge is also here, and she also gets a part in the level 2. Shadow Generations borrows a lot of direct references from Sonic's stage, and it carries more thematic references to Shadow's. So those are the 2 we'll mainly be looking at today. We'll pepper in Silver when he comes up, but it'll be a safe bet to follow Sonic, trace Shadow, and chart the set pieces between the 2. Thankfully, Shadow Generations does not have 3 campaigns, but it does have 2 acts. Yes, it keeps going. Most references take place in Act 1, but I don't want to totally shut out Act 2, as there are some fun things to bring up there as well. So, kinda like Silver, we'll pepper in Shadow Generations' second act when we need to. And to sum up the game plan, we're doing Sonic and Shadow's 06 Kingdom Valley, with a side of Silver, compared with Act 1 of Shadow Generations' Kingdom Valley, with a sprinkling of Act 2 here and there. No Project 06, Adam will be critical, but not for the bit, and with both levels attempting to balance combat and speed, we shouldn't have too much trouble with how they match up, besides the vibe and controls. I know that probably doesn't appease everyone, but it's the best I can do. Ooh-wee, I think that covers just about all of it. But now that we set up the game plan, we have to set up the stage! Let's head on down to Soliana in about 40 minutes. Are you gonna eat your pretzels? All right, everyone, pair up, buddy system. Please don't get lost. These are the ancient castles of Soliana, which housed the Duke and other royals. But after a couple of uh-ohs at the Hadron Collider, the monarchy moved out and Eggman moved right in. It's now a bit of a base for the big guy, and he's not keeping up appearances. The castles have fallen into disarray. Towers crumble if you so much as sneeze at them, so Kingdom Valley is a hazard zone. But this collapsing ruin filled with heavy mechs is the perfect place to stage the finale of a game that hinges on a princess. It does not surprise me that this level left an impression on people. It's got some grand set pieces, capital G, and the score is dramatic and wondrous. It also features our heroes teaming up to fight the final menace. Thematically, it's a great penultimate track. Unfortunately, this level is chopped up awkwardly into pace-breaking segments that ruin any drive you have for the larger story. As with most Sonic 06 stages, this level isn't as challenging as grappling with the controls. Most routes are straightforward and admittedly clever. I think there are a lot of positives to Sonic 06's stage layout, but it'll be nerve-wracking because you know how easily one jolt to the right could interrupt things. Kinda like last time, trying to compare this side by side will be extremely difficult, as we've got way too many variables. What we'll try today is inch everyone forward together, only progressing when we all match up. And with the way Sonic 06's level is structured, that can be a total mess. Thankfully, you guys got a freak like me to explain it to you. Alright, how many of you have no lives? Cool. Follow me to the antique shop. Okay, this one is for the super nerds, so normal people fast forward. It ain't essential, but it'll help explain Sonic 06's layout. As for the rest of you, crowd around. We gotta divvy up this goddamn kingdom. In depth. Okay, so, stay with me here. Kingdom Valley is a level in Sonic 06. We got that. You play through it 3 different times, as Sonic, Shadow, and Silver. Alrighty, that's simple. Kingdom Valley, the level, is comprised of 4 different maps that are separated by loading zones. We'll call them Wind, Lakeside, Castle, and Water, as that's how it's labeled on the soundtrack. Admittedly, a bit out of order. Okay, 3 characters, 4 maps. Who gets what? Sonic the Hedgehog gets all 4. He essentially plays the full level. Shadow the Hedgehog gets only the first 3 maps. And Silver the Hedgehog is stuck with the middle 2, Lakeside and Castle. Is everyone good? Anyone need any water? Alright, we're gonna keep moving forward. Now, Sonic 06 keeps things interesting by flipping your starting points and routes for each character. For instance, Sonic starts at the bottom of Wind and then leaves at the top. But Shadow enters from Sonic's exit, and only leaves halfway through. And to make things even more confusing, most maps are divided into different gameplay mechanics. You run through Wind as Sonic, on his feet, but you fly through it on a weaponized glider as Shadow. Silver gets no fun toys, nor is he even featured in Wind, so we can actually wrap that map up now. Cool. But Lakeside is where things get crazy. For Sonic, you start at the top and immediately switch into Silver. Now remember, we are not playing Silver's level here. We are playing as Silver in Sonic's level. Silver's level is different. It uses the same map, but it starts all the way on the left and exits where Sonic starts. Silver's route has no gameplay switches, so he's cut and dry, and we're done with his Lakeside. Thank God. But when you play as Silver in Sonic's level, you float your way to the bottom of the right side, where you will switch back into Sonic and exit the map, which means you basically only use Silver to play through Sonic's Lakeside map. Ah, but Shadow is here too, isn't he? Shadow starts somewhere in the middle here, but then you immediately switch into Rouge. Rouge needs to gather 3 keys on the entirety of the right half of Lakeside for Shadow to progress. But Shadow doesn't leave the map once we finish with Rouge, he continues onto the left half of Lakeside, but this time in a hovercraft. Another vehicle. Shadow exits the map where Silver starts, which means Sonic and Shadow don't get to progress through Lakeside normally. Sonic can only play as Silver, and Shadow must play as Rouge and then finish with a vehicle section, barring any exploits. And that's Lakeside. 2 maps down, 2 to go. Now we got Castle. Things are nice and simple for Sonic here as you run through the whole map, starting at the top left and exiting at the top right. This is the final map for Silver and Shadow, however. For Silver, you start at the bottom left, but then switch into Sonic. Here's a nice thing, Sonic's section in Silver's level follows Sonic's path in his own level. But not all the way, you finish at the bottom right, then switch back into Silver, who moves to the top and finishes the level. Cool. Now, how about the ultimate life form? Shadow starts where both Sonic and Silver exit, here at the top right. Kinda like Sonic, Shadow gets to mostly play through this whole thing too, just going in the opposite direction and finishing where the other 2 start. Awesome. That's Castle. And let's finish with the easiest. Water. Only Sonic gets to run through water, but not normally, as this map is tackled with a Mach Speed section, the unwieldy high-octane sprint that gets your palms sweaty. I'll speak more on this section later, but let's wrap these maps up for now. So, to keep the order super simple, Sonic goes normal, Silver, normal, Mach, Shadow goes vehicle, Rouge vehicle, normal, and Silver goes normal, Sonic normal. And that is Kingdom Valley, 3 different ways in Sonic 06.
Hey! Are you guys having sex in here?
Not yet.
Out!
Well, folks, there's nothing else I can prepare you for. I think it's time we actually dig into this thing. Let's finally compare Kingdom Valley. No matter what version you play, almost all Kingdom Valleys start off in what I like to call Eagle Valley. So let's begin with Sonic back in 2006. Unlike the previous comparison, there is no startup here. Once you finish loading, you're immediately given control. You're placed up on this high platform with a single tree, and this majestic beast soaring into view. Eagle-eyed viewers might recognize this area from the start screen. Kingdom Valley is also featured on the cover of 06, so it's clear this space is significant to the designers. Although things don't match up perfectly. We don't get any view of the castle spires in the actual level, and the lighting is a bit more gloomy. The clear skies are replaced with all these dark clouds, and who better to tear through them than Shadow the Hedgehog. In 2006, he starts with a glider. No fun camera movements here, just a load finish and boom, Shadow is on vacation. If the landscape looks a little different, it's because Shadow flies in on the other side of the valley. Remember, Sonic 06 differentiates each campaign by having them go through different routes for every level. So, how do they switch up the start for Shadow Generations? 18 years later, Shadow skips the glider and goes straight for the Eagle. The birds are featured prominently in Kingdom Valley, so I think the swap here is fitting. However, your spin around the camera is pretty dull, mostly just rocky outcrop. I think this could have been a perfect spot to bring back that mysterious castle roof from the title screen, but the positioning still wouldn't make a ton of sense. The Eagle drops you into an area that is very similar to Sonic's start. Big tree, crumbling ruin, single torch, and let's pause. Alright, everyone's started. Except for Silver, but he doesn't get this map, so we'll wait for him. Let's follow our current order and swap back to Sonic in 2006. In the first moments, you see these robots spawning in behind some wooden boxes. The placement here is strange, right? These brown cubes are blocking our vision. But if we wait for just a second, we can see why, as this eagle flies into view. They're pretty close together, huh? Which means if we climb on top, we can probably grab those talons. And if we're quick, we can! The eagle allows you to skip the initial road by homing in on some item pods and dropping you right onto our next section. Now, a lot of first-timers probably wouldn't know that the eagles can carry you on this level, so this is more of a fun surprise for replays. A facet of many a Sonic game. But screw the eagle, because I want to jump into our first set piece, this crumbling roadway covered in rails. Now, this is a simple 15-second section, but I think it's pretty memorable considering they did bring it back 18 years later. This is a curving roadway with some rails on the side. No real frills, no real struggle. So why do we always remember it? My answer is it's kind of a nice example of Sonic level design. You have your typical path dotted with dash pads and ramps that send you over these broken portions. So going forward is still fun, but it's also surrounded by the trickier path. The rails. The only real struggle is homing in, but once you're on, you're on. It's like those stairs in City Escape. You can just run down them, the game won't stop you, but you're encouraged to get tricky with it and set your heels on that rail. Those are some of my favorite ways to build Sonic routes. Going forward is no question, and they still make it fun, but getting risky is rewarding, typically with time, but also, and this is very important, with the cool factor, and that's this roadway. The rails aren't a huge time saver. They actually even take longer, and you get a similar amount of rings on them. But you try to get on there anyways because it looks stylish, and we are Sonic the freaking Hedgehog, baby. This roadway also sets us up for the environment of the level 2. Kingdom Valley takes place in a crumbling castle. What better way to show that than having your route inside already falling to pieces? I also think keeping one rail consistent over gaps sells it even more. It's like this whole bridge is hanging on by a thread. And here comes Sonic grinding all over it. Shadow Gens has this part about a minute and a half in. It comes after your first water section. Shadow moves fast here on either path, so the reference can pass you by, but the architecture clues you in. We get low, close to the action, and Shadow stays at the bottom. We get to see all that path we're skipping. The camera also tracks from the right, which emphasizes the curve we're taking. One thing I noticed is that Shadow's path circles up, while 06's path curves down. If I were to throw Sonic 06 a bone here, I'd say their path feels far more trepidatious. You see a lot of spindly supports over a long drop. Shadow Gens is surrounded by other buildings, so I don't really feel at risk. But I'm also Shadow the goddamn Hedgehog, so I say that fits the bill. Okay, oh my god, way too much talking about a bridge. Let's keep going with Sonic, back in 06. At the end of the road, we get some enemies and our first wind switch. These let us grind in midair over a gust of wind. I always thought the splayed squat looked a bit silly, but Shadow Generations ups the spectacle. You get a lot more wind effects with clear lines circling around you, combining with not only the boost, but also your path. It looks great. You can either ride out the wind or catch this rainbow ring for a bit of style, and some rings. Either way, you're at our first goal post. Okay, so let me give you a little inside baseball on something you don't even care about. Me. I wrote like 2,000 words for this section, deleted half of it, and tried to sort out the remaining script. There is a lot of little areas and separate routes that turn Sonic's level into a smorgasbord of exploration. This shit is open, and it is very goddamn vertical. But then I realized listing it all would make this thing like 20 minutes longer, so I'm just gonna give you the larger beats that we'll need for our comparison. Okay, first off, a lot of this verticality is accessed through your homing attack. Sonic 06's home floats you up higher than you'd expect. It also holds for a bit and allows you to climb higher by continuing your attack. A perfect example of this is this rainbow ring here. In any other Sonic game, I would think, oh, there must be a spring somewhere to launch me into that ring. But no, you simply need to home these crabs and you will reach heights you never thought possible. And once you understand this, you're able to get more ballsy with your approach and reach for those hidden pathways. I think a homing reticle could have solved a lot of this, along with a smoother animation that made it look like Sonic was ready for more attack instead of frozen and already falling. But for now, we just gotta pray that we're aiming in the right direction. You're able to use a lot of your homing to spring onto faraway ropes, bounce between enemies, and even jump from wind grinds. There's also a wall run section. Wall runs in 06 can feel strange because you're propelled fast and you have to quickly reorient yourself on the fly. But the nice thing is you can get pretty damn slow and still stay glued to the wall. But if we remain patient and sprint up the stonework, we'll access this dirty tunnel with crabs galore. Ew. This shortcut is huge and skips over half of Eagle Valley. All that's left afterwards is a wind switch and you're out. What I love about this section is they still provide plenty of opportunity to get back on the higher route by including some dangerous pillars with bounce pads. These pillars are not dangerous because of the enemies, but because of the controls. That'll be your downfall in most parts here, as homing too early will send you into the Soliana Sea. If you do manage to get back on the high path, you will encounter another wall run that also has a new punishment path, also filled with annoying robots. So you want to keep to those stones as much as possible. Luckily, this light dash will spirit you in the right direction. Plus, it'll help skip that medallion and piss off anyone watching the video. This last portion finishes up with a lot of wind grinding. Almost every platform has these switches, and they all send you towards the exit. You can get a bit more tricky here and grab some rainbow rings, but the distance isn't far, so playing it safe is always an option. And that's kind of the route of Eagle Valley. Yay, that was only 500 words. Good job, Adam. Only 14,000 more to go. But let's wrap up Sonic's Eagle Valley. I never gave this area a second thought in 2006, but now it's all I can think about in 2024. It's great. I love how many iterations you can take towards the exit. I love that they don't mess around with the challenge, and I genuinely love the layout of this section. What I hate is moving through it. That might be my whole thesis for this video, but what I'm realizing is that Sonic 06 doesn't have bad levels, it's got bad controls. Any critique I had about this place had to do with moving Sonic. The camera should be wider, it should be easy to swing around and search for shortcuts. I wish Sonic's animations didn't trip you up so much, it's hard to plan your movement. I wish he arced a bit more in midair, I wish he wasn't a magnet for missiles, I wish he had a homing reticle, I wish the enemies weren't so tanky, I wish I had a $1 kajillion, yada yada yada. But I wish for Eagle Valley to stay the same, because if you tweaked up all of Sonic's issues, I think this level would be a joy to play through. By the way, I could hear you screaming on the other side of the screen, because I bet he does all that over there, huh? We'll get to it eventually, okay? And then you can rub it all in my face. But for now, we gotta keep moving forward. The ultimate life form is about to touch down, and we gotta make some room. So we'll be quick here, as this section is nothing to write home about. Your position is fixed, tighter than you'd assume. Visible caves and pathways cannot be traveled through, as you'll just get caught on these invisible walls. Your weapons are fairly powerful, you can easily avoid the robots, and the flight lasts you about 30 seconds. If only you could run around down there. How would that feel? Well, good news. Shadow Generations answers that question, and now we're finally here. 18 years later, how did they remix this area? Well, first, let's get there. After getting dropped off by the Eagle taxi, Shadow boosts down a slope, and the camera gets tight for a few seconds, but doesn't show off. Shadow Gens takes a note from Sonic Gen's playbook and keeps the camera fairly wide. Shadow almost never breaches this top half of the screen. They leave things open so you can see where you're going. But they don't hold back on the set pieces. They love swinging the camera all around when Shadow has a set path. You really feel it on the rails in this game. Once the camera redirects, something becomes clear. They're using the same layout as Shadow's glider flight, but this time we get to run all over it. And it's fun as hell! While the geometry doesn't match up exactly, we're still getting some loose references, like this bridge at the start, this large castle wall to the left, and we even get to finally use those ropes at the bottom of the screen. So a couple of things are restored from the timeline here. We got rope bounces and wind switches. Boom, easy. We got long bridges with robots getting nervous. Awesome. We have mid-route eagle traversal. It's kind of quick, but it's there. We got a wall run in a very similar fashion that curves up. And just like 06, falling down takes you into more enemies, but there are way less of them, and they are much easier to handle. Another neat thing they include is our dirt tunnel. He's back! No one is inside, but you follow a similar path and you even fly off a dash ramp towards a wind switch like in 06. But what are the big differences here conceptually? One, it's way less congested. Enemies are not placed there for you to fight, instead to bounce you between different areas. Two, it's way wider. There's a ton of open space here. It's essentially Eagle Valley with double the width. At times, it can feel a bit sparse, but there's never any confusion on where you need to go, as you're able to see everything. 3, you're airborne a lot more in this one, and for a good portion of it, you're actually in the middle of the valley. You're able to see your path far down the level, so you're able to make your route decisions early on. Although I can kinda see how that's the fun of it in 06, you're definitely incentivized to explore more there. In Shadow Gens, you're more exploring in motion. And just to speak on the environment, it's way brighter this time around. The pit is filled with white clouds instead of dark water, and they really bump the contrast. You can see all that green grass. However, considering the realism and dark tone Sonic 06 is going for, I think that feeling of an incoming storm is more suited. It feels troubling. It feels like a penultimate level. Shadow Gens makes it feel much more like a course. Almost like Shadow is remembering how easy everything was for him. I mean, of course it was. It was his level number 2. Overall, I love the changes they made here to suit Shadow's new movement, but I really gotta give props to Sonic 06 in this department. I think their section is more challenging, but also much more clever. There's so many different choices you can make here, it's insane. This map was the one thing in 06 that blew me away on the replay. I didn't know it had so much in it. It was fun to explore. The layout of the level, maybe not fun handling it, but the map was totally fine, and I think it stands up well. and I bet it shines like a diamond over there. Either way, we're done with Wind, aka Eagle Valley, aka the start of Sonic and Shadows 06, aka also the start of Shadow Gens. Which means now, we're gonna get a bit wet and wild as we enter Lakeside. After Sonic grabs the loading eagle, he is transported to a large, insulated waterway. And immediately, we meet up with our good buddy Silver, and now we should probably talk about him for a moment. If I already hate Sonic and Shadows 06 extravaganza, then please understand that I hate Silver's so much more. Which is horrible, because I love Silver himself, but controlling him is a total drag for me. Silver commits the ultimate sin in any Sonic game, and that is being slow. Sonic and Shadow have a stop-and-go nature that I already loathe, but Silver is all stop. His levels focus more on puzzle solving, platforming, and psychokinetic combat, which does not live up to the name. If you're gearing up for a run, then the baton is typically passed to Blaze, who will take care of all the fun parts. But Blaze got lost in the cutscenes on this one, so we actually play as Sonic this time around. And yes, that means we also play as Silver in Sonic's level, which is where we left this guy. But before we talk about Silver in Sonic's level, let's just start with Silver's level. I'll try to keep it brief, as a lot of these gameplay beats repeat themselves, but essentially for Silver's Kingdom Valley, you're floating over a lot of water while throwing boxes at large groups of robots. Just like all hedgehogs, Silver wears shoes and cannot swim, so the challenge is surviving between these docks and stone platforms. I really don't have much to say on Silver's adventure in Lakeside. It's monotonous, slow, and lacks any real spectacle. The only unique thing Silver gets is the gameplay element of swinging these pendulums into towers. I'm always down for smashing things, but it's nothing to write home about, considering we see Sonic and Shadow achieve this just by punching robots themselves. So for me, the first half of Silver's own level is pretty boring. Thankfully, when you play as him during Sonic's level, he only traverses half of Lakeside, and then teleports Sonic to the bottom, so you don't have to do it all again. Even when I watch S-ranks of this guy, I don't see the fun. Maybe someone can help me here, honestly. Now, I'm also the guy who typically hates playing as anyone besides Sonic in a Sonic game, so that one might be on me. I've never really been won over by Sonic Team experimenting with different playstyles. I do want them to try. The risky experimentation in all these games charms me to no end, and even if it doesn't work for me, it clearly works for others. I just could be missing the picture here. For Project 06, this is the character I'm most curious about. I feel like if you tweak this guy's moveset, he could be a real treat. But for the time being, playing as Silver is just not my thing, and that's what I'll say on that. But good news, as that takes care of the second 06 map for Sonic and Silver. But how does Shadow the Hedgehog tackle Lakeside? Well, he doesn't, at least not for the first half. You smash 2 robots and are quickly shifted over to our bat buddy, Rouge, who needs to find 3 keys to progress. Just like Adventure 2, but way worse. Fighting is necessary to gather every key, and Rouge's combat is awkward and tedious. She can only throw bombs, but most have to be held first, as you aim with no reticle, locked to your animation. I appreciate the callback, and it is staggering how much space they give you to explore here. That's the thing that surprises me about 06, the map design is so big, even in the damn hub worlds. But again, it's just hampered by sluggish controls, and the objective here is a total pace breaker. Even if the glider wasn't giving us much fun to begin with, I hate this mandatory section much more. But where is Rouge in the future? Rouge may be in Shadow Generations, but she's busy with the open bar back at Sonic's Big 20, or 30, I don't know how old he is, which means Shadow has to tackle Soliana alone. And honestly, thank God for that. These character switches are some of the worst moments of 06 for me. Unless we're getting a break from Silver, most character swaps feel tacked on, unnecessary, and they always kill the momentum of any level. I love these guys, I just hate what they did with them here, and I'm so curious what they did with them over there. Anyways, thankfully there is no flyback, as after key number 3, you cut back over to Shadow, already through the door with a hovercraft in a whole bed of water, ready to get surfed on. Good news! They did this bit in Shadow Generations as well, but let's go over Sonic 06 first. Shadow descends a stairwell and hops onto a hovercraft. This thing controls how you'd expect. The acceleration is strange, the turning is stiff, but it's serviceable and not much of a hindrance. You get guns to shoot robots, and if you double tap A, you can do a little jump, something I did not know until my replay. Now this section is pretty quick if you just move forward, as you can simply sneak on over to the end and exit the map. The real trouble here are these collapsing towers dotted around the lake. One stray bullet will cause it to topple, slowly, and if it hits you, you're dead. Okay, just avoid them, right? Problem is, the camera is fixed forward when you drive, so you can't see if these things are gonna fall onto you and squash Shadow. You'll have an easier time just shooting them from afar, holding off and then progressing when the coast is clear. After practice, you can time a lot of this correctly and speed through it. Interesting thing is, you can jump out of the hovercraft at any time. Shadow goes right on top of it. They have more platforms with items if you want to collect them, but none of it is essential. Again, it's staggering how much room they gave you here for such a short section. I understand that it's just a shared map, and a lot of it is used for silver, but you'd think they'd start closing more stuff off. But no, they keep it open. It's all there for you to explore if you so choose. I like that. I don't like doing that, but I like that they attempted to use this space for players who are loving the hovercraft. There's a strange sense of freedom in a lot of 06 levels. None of them feel like courses, and more like maps. City Escape to me is not a map, it's a runway. But Kingdom Valley is just wide open. Constantly. I never really saw it before because I was always rushing to finish, but it's a cool aspect of this janky game. But how do they translate all this water? I'm saying this weird. But how do they translate all this water 18 years later? Thankfully for Shadow Generations, our main man forgot he ever piloted that paddle boat and instead speeds through the water with his Doom Surf ability. And oh my god, it's so much fun! Doom Surf can feel a bit slow at times, but your reduced speed helps you prepare for track elements shoved to your sides. Doom Surf's main ability is swinging from left to right. They position the ramps and rings at equal distance, so if you get into the groove, you'll always be spinning where they want. But you got a lot to choose from, as this first surf run gets wide. Once you surf past this wall, they hit you with so many options, and they make it clear. First off, a giant pillar separates us between left and right. This arch with torches highlights stairs in the distance, also with torches. You see how it kind of circles it? Speaking of torches, look how they line this right wall. Helps us catch this floating platform above. The blue also helps, if we're being honest. And the way things are positioned in the water too, like this one lone cube before these ramps, or the way these two pillars straddle these cubes. We like cubes, the game already fed us some, and we ate it up. That's not even counting the litany of dash rings floating in the water. I know, baby points at shapes, but listen, what I'm trying to say here is your eyes are making choices in the moment, and that's important for a Sonic game, especially when you're hit with a new mechanic. Every route here is promising to move you forward. It's exciting. We're given a big sandbox too, and we're ready to play. Oh god, the baby metaphor is working. I really thought they would abandon the water traversal from 06, but they implemented it here and reshaped it into a fun new experience. They even kept it kinda open, like in 06. You can even get off your hovercraft, in a sense. Ah, but where does all that water go? Turns out it drains right out of these bars, and Shadow is gonna look very cool hopping out of them. Alright, this part will be tiny, but it's cool, okay? I think I said cool like 50 times in the last 5 seconds. Okay, as Shadow blasts through these water rings, he escapes the current of the drain, and we hard cut to the other side of those bars. We watch Shadow do 2 glorious spins as he swan dives into the unknown. They also blast that sound of rushing water, almost like you exploded out of this wall, like you made the waterfall. And you know what? I love the slow camera turn here. When I first played this level, I thought I was falling into another surf section, but the camera doesn't spin immediately, nor does it really track from above either. It stays leveled with Shadow, so when we finally do complete our spin, we suddenly see we're gracefully somersaulting onto a stone bridge. Again, tiny, but I appreciate the restraint here. It surprised me even on my first go. What a fun sliver of spectacle they pulled out of thin air. I love it. Anyways, we're at the halfway point by now. All 3 characters of Sonic 06 have exited the lakeside map, and Shadow here in Generations has just escaped the recreation of it. We're all on track, which means this is a perfect time to pause and tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. No, I'm just kidding. Instead, we're gonna see Kingdom Valley's better half, the additional recreation that has some fantastic moments of its own. Shadow Generations' Kingdom Valley's Act 2. For those not in the know, Shadow Generations has Act 2s for every level, which share the same location, but are now redesigned for a 2D experience. It's classic Shadow, baby, and it's really fun. I find myself replaying these stages a lot, since they're all about combat and chaining moves, which means they're relatively short and pretty damn fast. And Kingdom Valley is my favorite among all of them. So, as I said, Kingdom Valley Act 2 mainly borrows the aesthetics of Kingdom Valley to overlay on a 2D stage, which means you won't find many direct references here, more just extended environments. But with that extension, they're able to broaden the world of Kingdom Valley by placing us on things we would expect but have yet to experience. Here's an example. The castle walls. You rarely get to run on these things in both games. They're reserved to box you into the map. But Act 2 has you scaling and skating down these stones. Collection of stones, these walls. Especially as you enter the castle area, you fly down layers of this thing. One of my favorite little details is the addition of these wooden scaffoldings. Kingdom Valley is a palace in disrepair. This thing is falling apart. Seeing these wooden boards hooked onto walls makes it feel like we're running over abandoned construction, and that's an extra little spice for the drama. I also like that there is clear environmental progression in Act 2. Now, to be honest, every version of Kingdom Valley has this. You start from the rocky landscape and then get deeper into the castle. But since Act 2 is fixed in the second dimension, the background transition is super clear. For the first minute, you are running through the same rocky outcrops we know and love, but slowly we're introduced to more stone, until finally we're through this rising door, and then boom, it's all castle. You barely see any grass for the rest of the level. This gradual change in scenery isn't anything novel, but I do love when Sonic levels make us feel like we're going through multiple spaces of a location. Like how NERDZ Sands goes from city to sand to canyon, or Jungle Joyride. Docks to jungle to waterfall. Speaking of Jungle Joyride, is this a Jungle Joyride reference? I say, as someone who has not played every single Sonic game. Now whatever, I'll let someone call me wrong later. But for now, let's pause on Act 2 and switch back over to Act 1. I just drank a lot of coffee, and Shadow the Hedgehog just dazzled us with 2 sexy spins. And he's hungry for more action. Rushing forward will put us on that rail runway we talked about at the start. We then bungee up some more ropes and zero in on a wind switch. So I've been pretty loose with my framing of Shadow Gens moves you forward through combat, but this part should illustrate what I'm talking about. On this last rope jump, you can home in on these 2 enemies without even seeing your path ahead. Since we trust how Shadow controls, we're probably assuming there's another guy up there to home even further. And there is! After finishing up with that robot, another rope awaits us. And at that moment, I thought, Shadow attacks pretty far. I bet I can reach that. With a double jump and a boost forward, the reticle appears, and I fly into it. That's 6 little moves, all intuitive, and I didn't even have to touch the ground. Tiny segments like this happen all the time, these snappy combo chains that have you either starting or finishing with a track element, and they almost always include some sort of enemy. I think I use the term combat in my brain because I've never homing attacked so much in a Sonic game before, besides heroes. I'm not always homing in on enemies, but they're part of the chains, and that's why my brain thinks combat. I could see platforming being used here as well, honestly. I might have to reword this later, but I hope that at least shows what I'm talking about. Anyways, you hit a wind switch and sail forward. Also, I want to cut in and say I love how they make Shadow lean on these grinds. This shot is a great example since we hard cut to a stationary camera far away, which tracks Shadow as he slings right across from us. He's much bigger here, so you can catch his balancing act. With the wind coursing around him and the electricity of the boost shooting you forward, they make these wind grinds feel so stimulating. Anyways, Shadow flies forward and eats a bunch of glass as he smashes right through this big old window. And that's kind of like a set piece, because it happens a lot, and let's talk about it now. This next part is kind of our one reference to the combat-oriented nature of 06. In Kingdom Valley, you're placed inside a lot of these towers that only open the way forward once you deal with a bunch of enemies. These are some of the worst moments of Kingdom Valley for me in 06. I hate slowing down to attack enemies with health bars, especially because my entrance was so cool. Both Sonic and Shadow cracked into these things way back when, and you can really feel that smash. Maybe it's that heavy glass shatter sound effect. It's like you're firing a baseball into the center of a church window. The sound effects of Sonic games, guys, they do more than you think. But they don't save us from combat. In these forced encounters, I really only find Silver's combat infuriating, as both Sonic and Shadow can bounce between enemies pretty quick. It just still doesn't feel great, and as always, it breaks the momentum of the level for me. So how does Shadow Generations do it? We got 5 enemies to defeat. Homing between them works as intended, but you also got Doom Spears, which means you can stun these guys before you even hit the ground. All at the same time. The last one even opens up for a Doom Blast for a bit of fun. It's fast, and they let you diversify your moves in quick succession. My only nitpick with the combat in Shadow Generations is that you can't home into enemies off-screen, like in Unleashed. I hate having to run backwards to get that reticle, but with the amount of things you can accidentally target in Shadow Generations, I can see how you'd run into trouble. Regardless, if they set up more encounters like this, I don't think I would mind too much. Maybe it's the absence of a health bar. I really love the speed of taking out robots in one action. I like to feel strong, and if you can make me feel strong and fast, then I definitely feel like the ultimate life form. Alright, let's home in on that eagle and get out of here, because we got some more water to surf. This is the shortest of our surf sections, only lasting around 10 seconds, but we got an adversary this time around. This alien will fire projectiles at you. You gotta spear them out of existence. Near the end, the game signals to use chaos control. I was so confused on my first couple runs because I didn't see any hazards to freeze anywhere on the screen. Where could they possibly be? Maybe right in front of you, Adam! In my defense, I thought Doom Blast only worked on these bozos, but firing up that pterodactyl will let you traverse onto a different route, and smash through another window. Take that! God. This immediately sends you to a wind switch, where the normal route has you jumping up ropes to get to a different one. The blast is a nice time skip, but I think it takes away from a great reveal that occurs on the normal route. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still got a lot to catch up with back in 06, as finally all 3 of our characters are moving on to the castle map. Let's again start with Sonic, and immediately enter into our next set piece. So they have this bit in Gens, and I thought it was referencing the second time you do this, but it follows more closely to the first. Sonic Eagle drops onto the roof of of a castle, and he sprints vertically down. A dash ramp at the end shoots him into the air as towers crumble around him, and he breaks some windows. The part you're probably remembering comes later in the level, where Sonic does this again, but traverses up and down the building. Shadow even has the same slope run as well, but it actually goes the opposite direction of Sonic's. But when we compare it to Shadow Gens, we can see that they're pulling from the first. He flies in at the same direction as Sonic, and the camera shot is nearly identical. I understand why they didn't do the two-slope run, as Sonic and Shadow take some time soaring through the air, but man, even 406, I love the spectacle here. Castle roofs look like they were made for Sonic to slide off of, so you know they had to do it on this map. And let's just speak on that set piece too, since we're already there. In hindsight, this stunt is pretty simple, but it always stuck out in my brain. I think it's because this roof is just odd, and the way you handle it is even weirder. If I was designing a roof slope jump, logically I'd have Sonic slide down the slope and fire off horizontally. But Sonic climbs the building vertically from the ground, and then shoots straight up. Not only that, he transfers sideways instead of continuing forward. I mean, it's like Tony Hawk, right? He's just moving down the ramp. But then why run up the building? Why not have him jump from a tower horizontally to access the roof? Why is he even doing this in the first place? There's nothing even blocking his path. Why is this roof so tall? Why move the camera so much? Why move it like this? Oh god, I'm gamer raging. Okay, Adam, stop. Let's move forward. It's not 2012 anymore. In truth, I don't care, because it looks cool, and that's all it needs to do. It's weird, and I kinda like it. I think about it way more than I should. This whack-ass roof never left my brain as a child, and when I heard Kingdom Valley was coming back, all I wondered was, will they even attempt it? And they didn't, but they did replicate the first slope sprint, and let's dig into that. In Shadow Gens, it's very clear when you see this bit coming. I was disappointed that you don't get a run up and down like in 06, but I love the inclusion of the Eagle. The Eagle was there in 06 too, but for Shadow Gens, you gotta be active. This is not an auto-grab Eagle, my friends. You gotta home in on those claws, so you can drop in on that slope. And watch the camera as Shadow slides down. It holds from the top, so we can see Shadow get really tiny on that big castle. Kinda like Sonic in Rooftop Run. It reins in pretty quick, and then we're back to some more robots. This is one of the more memorable moments from Kingdom Valley, so even though it's not the bigger one we remember, I'm glad it got referenced regardless. But that's just how Sonic starts the castle map. Let's see where he goes. Not very far, as Sonic battles some robots, opens a door, and activates a wind switch. Sonic does some cinematic grinds around these towers, and if you snag the rainbow ring here, you get this great hard cut, with Sonic spinning over the rest of the course, and these two monuments crumbling down on either side. But what follows is more arena combat, eventually jumping up these ropes and light dashing these rings, not homing them. You come out on the other side of another sharp window, Sonic actually gets a bit of runway again, and it is terrifying. Not visually, but nudging the thumbstick in any direction can send Sonic into the watery depths below, and if you do miraculously get saved by a tiny boundary, Sonic will stop dead in his tracks. I typically just jump here to reset my speed and then safely walk myself to the end. So what awaits us ahead is that big slope run we just talked about. What sits between that, however, is this interesting little collection of supports surrounding a spire with a spring on top. You rope jump up and home in on these robots to start the slope sprint. It's short, but I really love this scene. Not for the gameplay, but for the environment. The slope sprint takes up the entire left half of the screen, but the right side, for the first time, is open. You're no longer boxed in. Kingdom Valley finally has a view. You don't really get to see it, but it's nice to keep the landscape varied. Like, I imagine this is where the royalty looked out from. The area feels important, but also dangerous, with the slew of sharp spires breaching the water, kinda like the castle has sunk down in recent years. But then comes the slope sprint, which Sonic will finish, sprint forward, and battle upon more of these circular stone arenas, with some platforming in between. But let's pause there and catch up with Silver, as that will be easy. Hey, remember this goofball? I like Silver. Who doesn't like Silver here? Everyone loves Silver. Come on. Silver starts in the same circular room Sonic used to spring up those ropes. But once he finishes off the robots in there, we actually switch into Sonic and play through the same exact path I just showed in Sonic's level, starting with this scary path down and ending at this stone bridge. And I'm happy that we got something to break up the pace here, because once we switch back into Silver, it's a lot more slow robot killing. Silver is able to raise some blocks and actually do some pendulum platforming this time, but yet again, his last map is nothing to write home about. There are no real puzzles, and you're just hovering and throwing things at these towers by the end of it. Once Silver has nowhere else to go, he grabs onto an eagle and is dropped off in front of this castle. I want to talk a bit more about this when Sonic gets here, but boy have we been doing a lot of Sonic 06, huh? Let's switch things up. We're inside the castle grounds now, right? How about we see what's inside those castles? No Kingdom Valley gives us that opportunity, except for our 2D friend over at Shadow Generations Act 2! Whew, been a while, buddy. Let's finally have you shatter something. Hit it! And finally, we get to go inside the buildings, and they're pretty dim and depressing. But what do you expect from an abandoned cathedral? It fits the bill and the vibe. This was the jaw drop for me on Act 2. It's such an obvious play, but I didn't see it coming. Of course we should go inside the castles, that's genius. I kinda wish we got to see more furniture, more decor, but most of the area is reserved for platforming, with all these rising blocks. Eventually you jump into this open-air arena and quickly platform over more blocks. But I believe this is the same arena that you release Mephiles from in Shadow's story. The pillar and supports are identical. It's wide enough to match the cutscenes, and it would make sense for Shadow to remember this part, because, you know, he was there. Thankfully, Mephiles isn't here. He's tapping his foot behind a boss door. But we're looking at Kingdom Valley, not Dusty Desert, so you gotta wait your turn, you purple stalactite. What follows is more block platforming. They want you using chaos control here to outmaneuver rectangles. You pass these grand windows and statues and speed on towards... You guessed it, another unlucky, flimsy window. Alright, buddy, we're gonna pause you before you do any more property damage. We still haven't experienced Shadow's 2006 journey through the castle. So let's switch over there. And back in time, we see Shadow yet again jumping from roofs and bouncing off of towers. Thankfully, there isn't much new here that you haven't already seen with Sonic. Shadow platforms off of ropes, beats up robots in a circular arena, and looks for exits. Besides knocking egg fighters into buildings, there isn't too much spectacle on this route. The set pieces we mentioned earlier are all here. The slope sprint, stained glass smash, we're just doing repeats. If it ever gets cinematic, it's when Shadow jumps between areas, sticking to walls. He does this a lot on his route, skipping a lot of Sonic's traversal. Shadow doesn't have time for that. He practically yells at us to get our ass in gear. You do have these collapsing stairs to run up. This is another cool moment bogged down by the camera. You almost never see these things falling behind you. You might not even realize they were falling to begin with. I think if they angled the camera down a bit more, this could be exciting. But instead, we're just catching plumes of dust as we climb. Eventually, we hit a wind switch and fly on down to the goal ring. And finally, now that Shadow himself is wind grinding again, we can switch back over to his remix 18 years later. And what a sight to behold! If you take the normal route, then they hide the reveal with these first two homing attacks, and when you finish with the wind switch, you get to see all of it. The space is huge, and the depth is easy to distinguish with all these buildings. But the best part is that pillowy bed of clouds at the bottom. It pairs so well with the windy atmosphere they're going for. And even better, you see no routes ahead of you, besides that one wind rail you just activated, which stands out because it contrasts so well with the dark tower in the center, basically telling you, hey, this is what we're gonna be doing. This is why I forgo that Doom Blast shortcut. I love how they unveil the area on the normal route. Alright, but what are we doing here? So this area is essentially a reconceptualization of Sonic 06's castle map. It features similar architecture, a large open space, and most importantly, wind grinding. And honestly, again, thank God. As we've seen in 2006, the castle map for all three of our boys was a couple of great set pieces interrupted by arenas of combat. But Shadow Gens instead makes this a grind course, and holy shit, some of the camera shots on these rails. This one in particular, Shadow is barely a pixel tall, but the orange boost gives us a clear indicator of his position. Once they shoot Shadow through two windows back to back, I knew they were just having fun here. There was no real challenge. I'd even hesitate to say spectacle, because I'm just smiling all the way through it. Last thing I want to note is that this is a pretty good place to stretch out your Doom Wings, but then again, you'd be missing out on all the fun. Kingdom Valley has a lot of space for Doom Wings, and yet they built the normal runways so spectacularly that I don't want to skip any part of them. Oh well, let's get one last killer shot here and mosey on forward. At the end, you take the slope sprint we already discussed and finish up with the castle fairly quick. Just a couple more homing attacks will send poor Shadow again through a window, and this pulsing vortex of a chaos control point sends us into our final surf section. Sad, because we don't really get it much in any other level, which is probably why they hit you over the head with it here. This last bit is the most difficult. The space is narrower, projectiles are faster, and there's a lot of bombs this time around. It doesn't last too long though, as once you exit the tunnel, you get one last body of water before switching it up again. You can actually pull off another Doom Blast here, like earlier on this dude, but you gotta be quick about it. You use Chaos Control to enter this section, which means you're fresh out at the start. You gotta hit this capsule right here to fill the tank, and then you can punish this little meat saucer and get to a higher vantage point. And killing these three robots will refill your meter again, allowing you to take this Chaos Control point and quickly leave the area. Either way, you boost forward into an unassuming hole and exit into a wondrous sight, but before that, let's check and see where everyone is at. Shadow of Generations is about to head into his final segment. Sonic and Silver are heading towards that tunnel too, and Shadow of 2006 has already surfed the wind and hit his goal ring, which means the only remaining friend we have left is Shadow of Generations Act 2! Alright, buddy, close your mouth. I'm so sorry. Okay, my favorite 2D portion, I think in this entire game, comes from this last tower climb at the end. Or should I say 2-time tower climb? Because he does it twice. Okay. So not only is the entrance spectacular, you once again headbutt a window, but the rainbow rings shoot you up higher than ever, and that camera ain't following you. It keeps the tower taking up the entire left half of the screen before it catches up with Shadow. I'm glad I did the rooftop run comparison first, because this is clearly clock tower coded. But Shadow doesn't just take on one tower, oh no, because once we disgrace the first one, our friendly eagle pal will fly us in between 2 spires and land us on an even taller building. I love how thin the supports are getting. The first tower's geometry is filled in with hard stone, but a lot of the pathways on Tower 2 are just spindly pillars. Makes you feel real high up. Also, I think the climbs here are very fun. The ropes and robots add in a good sense of verticality and opportunities for traversal. And finally, to finish up, we have this cheeky rainbow ring circle that fires us right into the goal ring. I feel like this ending castle backdrop here would have been a great thing to drop in at our Act 1 start, but I'm happy to see it here regardless. Anyways, I love the speed and rotation of these last 2 towers. Every time you turn, you get like a mini course to work through. There's wind switches, ropes, ramps, robots, even a goddamn accelerator gun sneaks into the fold. It's like they're using all the fun little mechanics of the level in this one last climb to the top. I think that's why it's my favorite, because not only is there 3D spectacle of flying between these 2 buildings, it's like a tour de force of Kingdom Valley's tricks, segmented into all these little scenes every time you rotate. After the more controlled platforming of the cathedral, this last chain to the top is a great way to cap off the level. And that is Shadow Generations Kingdom Valley Act 2, which means we just gotta get our last 2 2006 stragglers through that tunnel, and we can finish up. And that won't be too tough, as we left Sonic close to the end. Not much more is required, maybe a couple more explosive slides and some bounce padding. The stairs crumble here too, like they do on Shadow Stage. It's a lot of the same, wouldn't you know? This is the same path as Silver, so it probably looks familiar. Eventually Sonic hits his final wind switch. The grind here is cinematic, as robots will fly and fire at Sonic as he circles around these towers. And then we get to Silver's last stand. Once Sonic gets to the last platform before the castle, he must deal with a horde of robots guarding the perimeter. Taking out the first wave spawns a second, but also opens your escape. You stay to fight, but then you hear that soft, beautiful voice of Silver the Hedgehog.
Sonic, leave this up to me, and train the boy. He is the chosen one.
I think I might get my lines mixed up here. Anyways, let's stamp a little OS on that line, because we don't actually see Silver say it. We just hear his Force Ghost. So why am I saying it? And making a Phantom Menace reference that isn't even a meme, because this is actually the end of Silver's level. You do gotta fight off a wave of robots. Only one, and Sonic is nowhere to be found, but they connected the 2 stories through a bit of gameplay, and that's a fun way of tackling 2 campaigns raining in on one level. You do have Silver and Sonic sections in each of their respective levels, but they don't match up to where we find them. But here, our timelines sync up. Thematically, it makes sense for the story. Both are after the egg carrier. Silver is making up for his previous mistakes, and his sacrifice makes the next section deliciously dramatic. Now, unfortunately for all of us, Silver isn't showing up in Shadow's Generations, cause he's starring in Silver Generations, an imaginary game that cool people make up in their heads. So this section isn't replicated in Shadow's Anguished Adventure 2. Nor is this great castle exterior. I was kinda sad that the lead up to our last section wasn't as epic as 06. You finish up with our final surf section, rush forward towards some plain dark walls, and speed through this unassuming tunnel. Thankfully this time it's continuous. No loading screen interrupts the moment as the camera squeezes inside with us. And as we exit, the camera pulls way back to capture the majesty of our final set piece. This is the part, right? This is Kingdom Valley's jaw-drop moment. Even in a broken, buggy mess of a game, you can still snag a bit of wonder from this set piece. That is, until you start playing it. Let's go over that quickly. This is a Mach speed section. Sonic sprints at a fixed speed towards his destination, but you cannot stop Sonic nor steer him in midair, which means jumps are perilous and your movements matter. If I were being completely honest, these were my favorite sections of the game when I was a kid. The idea that I could only steer my blue buddy with the thumbstick, narrowly avoiding trees and enemies, made it feel like Sonic was in a blockbuster movie or something. I craved that cinematic experience. Ah, if only I waited 2 more years. But even back then, I was not taking in the wonder. I was gripping onto my controller for dear life. There was more water on my palms than in that valley. I always gritted my teeth and prayed I would land Sonic right this time. I even got nervous again replaying the level for this video. So I believe the unwieldy controls can dampen this great moment. And will end my gameplay complaints there, as there's way more for me to love. The visuals are at the forefront of your memory, I assume. It's majestic and also unsuspecting. Kingdom Valley is pretty straight and narrow for the most part. Besides the wind switches, you're basically just hopping through a flooded fortress. But this part is downright magical. The choir on the soundtrack almost sounds surprised as Sonic launches forward into the set piece. The rainbow, the statues, the water falling up as robots swarm all over you. So good. You also do get some wall running / water running in this section too. If you just point forward, you'll be fine. Navigating lower will net you some item pods if you're brave enough, but it's never really clear how low the point of no return is, so 10-year-old me just went straight. There is no water running in Generations, however, and they switch things up pretty drastically. No Mach speed here, which means we can stop and reposition Shadow, and that comes with a wonderful addition of multiple routes. A lot of these are pretty darn easy. It's not hard to get stylish here and bounce onto different areas. If I'm being completely honest, the moments where Shadow just runs straight are some of the most boring sections for me, which is crazy, because those are my favorites in all the other Boost games. I think it's just that combat combo playstyle Shadow has. I would have much preferred more bouncing from pathways to pillars instead of the big straight lines we got here. Occasionally you get a bit of action, but otherwise you won't be sweating as much as you did 18 years ago. But they went above and beyond on the visuals of this section. First off, this is not a visual, but the roar of the water when you exit that tunnel, it's so loud. Kind of reminds me of that drain from earlier. Second, they reminded us how wet this place would be. You get this great rain effect, both in the level and on the camera. They darkened the stonework here so it looks like it's been stuck underwater. And the reflections of the puddles on the runway, it's like all working together here to complement that magnificent environment. So the look of our waterfall water run is top notch. As for the difficulty, well, okay. Truthfully, I think this part was a bit too easy for the home stretch. Would have loved to see some more routes, maybe something a bit more vertical, maybe topple some of those ending pillars like an NERDZ. But I really think they just want you looking around in these last 30 seconds. And I'm not complaining. This is like my gentle jog at the end of Dragon Road. I like just focusing on the moment. So even if the terrifying thrill of the Mach speed isn't there, I think this ending is visually stunning. But where's my rainbow? Whatever. Get that edgy-hedgy into the goal ring. And with every iteration of Kingdom Valley finished to completion, we can finally wrap up this unorganized mess of a video. Sorry, everyone. It's been a long time coming, friends, but now we both must answer the final question. How does Kingdom Valley make you feel? In Sonic 06, Kingdom Valley feels important. It's grand and imposing. For a game that revolves around royalty and ancient evils, this is what I would want as it comes to a close. A desperate run through a collapsing castle, flooded waterways, mystical wind switches, scaling up and down castle walls, they got it all. The score is driving, it feels consequential, and it carries with it just a tinge of mysticism, which unveils itself throughout the level, finally erupting into a full roar as the choir wails and Sonic races through a final stretch that feels downright biblical. But I can't control Sonic. I do my best, but he flies off course. He is a chore to maneuver. I don't like playing this game. I never did, and I still don't. My replay didn't convince me I was wrong. It brought back frustrations I buried deep inside me. But I can channel that anger into curiosity. I can question my grievances. I can ask myself, why do I hate this? And the answer is not the level. Sonic 06 lovers and Project 06 enjoyers, if there's one thing to take away from my last hour of hatred, it's this. I don't think Kingdom Valley is bad. I think playing as these guys in it is awful. Almost all of my main critiques are how these characters navigate this level. But from a basic design, I think Kingdom Valley is totally serviceable, even crafty in some respects. That first map is legitimately fun to scale and explore. I was surprised how many routes were available that I totally skipped out on as a child. If I were to levy one main critique at the level here, it would be that many pieces of Kingdom Valley are sequestered for combat. If the designers didn't have to worry about giving us fights, I think something like Lakeside could be really fun. Even some parts of Castle. In a perfect world, I'm imagining a lot of these closed-door towers having only 1 or 2 enemies, with springs that you don't have to unlock, route positioning that has you smashing between glass window panes and hopping around wind switches constantly, opportunities to keep going all the time. And for Shadow Generations, that's literally what we got. In Shadow Generations, I feel like Kingdom Valley should be afraid of me. Dropping me off that eagle was the worst thing that ever happened to that goddamn castle. Shadow rips through this thing confidently. Any supposed obstacle is trumped by his new moveset, and I feel so cool pulling all of it off. It revels in the movements of Shadow. The enemies go by fast, and they're used to keep you going, not slow you down. And for that, it's one of the most impressive remixes out of all of Generations, even Sonic's. It's my favorite level from the game. And that even goes for its Act 2. It's amazing how much they understood the assignment here. They took all the spectacle and level mechanics from 06 and morphed them into this fantastic stage built for Shadow's combo-driven nature. And what's even more impressive, they still kept things largely open here. I think it's the widest of all the Shadow Generations levels. It encourages you to explore, just like the original. I felt like they respected a lot of 06's layout and worked on areas that gave people trouble. They make good use of the set pieces, they amplify the spectacle, and they keep it fast as hell. Barely any slowdown, constant action, no health bars, dynamic shots, striking sound effects, Eagle International, Manta Ray Wavebreaker, Shadow with a double twirl. The reconstruction was phenomenal. But that's how you make a Sonic game for Adam, not for everyone else. And that's how I want to wrap things up here. There are fans of Sonic 06. There are fans of Sonic 06 without Project 06. And they're not wrong. They just want a different Sonic game than I do, and with a series so abundant with change, I gotta accept that at some point. I've talked to a lot of people who love Sonic 06. Your passion makes me enjoy it. It perks my ears up. Years ago, Kingdom Valley was the gray level. Muddy stone with water at the end. But when I read other people's experiences, I can see the magic. It was always there, and if I kept plugging my ears, I'd never find it. I'm glad I gave this level another shot, and I'm glad Shadow Generations gave me a kick in the right direction. I think I still hate Sonic 06, and I know I love Shadow Generations. But even if it's got some holes, Kingdom Valley stands strong between the two of them. And that is how we'll leave things. But your job is just getting started. I want to hear how Kingdom Valley makes you feel. Were you a lover even back then? Were you a hater just like me? How about that remix? Did Generations nail it? Did it miss out on some things? Let me know in the comments. This video was a bit weirder to make. I think Kingdom Valley was much more of a challenge than I anticipated. There's no doubt I missed some things across all versions, so feel free to let me know. I might try and keep things more simple in the future. Trying to shove everything in made it a bit bloated, but I wanted to try, and I hope the episode was at least fun. Even if I might seem a little bit exhausted in this one, it was such a fun challenge to tackle. I apologize to any Project 06 fans. I'm sure this video is a bit of a chore to watch as you already know how everything got fixed. But hang in there, I'll bask in the glory eventually. Next video, thankfully, is much easier. We get another individual level analysis from Unleashed, so stay tuned. God, I'm so excited to look at just one level again. In terms of Generations, we're gonna keep the comparison train going, but we'll switch back to Sonic's side for the time being. There's some standout levels I just gotta hit. Once again, the outpouring of comments means so much to me. I know I say this all the time, but I never expected them to get so many views, and I absolutely love making them. And talking to you guys. That's why I won't shut my mouth in the comments. It's always a treat to chat, so the floor is yours. Okie dokie, I'm gonna go play Silver Generations in my head. See you later.